Bit of a strange Friday at Silverstone. Well, no surprise there. Weather was a bit dodgy, raining in the morning, not for the beginning of Formula 1, but certainly affected Formula 3 and Formula 2 untimed practice. But then it rained right at the end of FP2 in Formula 1, curtailing a little bit the long runs. But we got a good picture of where most of the teams were at in terms of running fuel. But in terms of light fuel, given the crosswinds, given the gusts at Silverstone, the inclement weather, the cloudy weather, a little bit difficult to draw conclusions from this Friday. As you can see, if we just take a look straight away at the fastest laps in FP2, when the track was a little bit quicker, Sergio Perez was third for Red Bull Honda, put in more laps on the soft tyre with light fuel than perhaps some of the others at that point of the session. And that's because in the morning session, his car was given to Isack Hadjar, the Red Bull driver, who's been doing very well in Formula 2 recently and actually had a massive moment with Lando Norris. He was on a very slow lap, hadn't been told that Lando was catching him, presumably not looking in the mirrors. Lando, unbelievably quick out of turn 2, just got the thing stopped in time, locked up, went slightly off track as well. Just shows a little bit how drivable and controllable that McLaren is. I'm not sure if that had been Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari, which has looked pretty much on edge today through the super quick corners, and turn 2 is a super quick corner at Silverstone. I'm not sure they would have got it stopped as quite effectively as Lando did in the McLaren. Anyway, it was a scary moment, and that was Isack Hadjar who drove the Perez Red Bull. So that's why Sergio spent a bit more time on the soft tyre and got that time in, 26.9, shouldn't in any way detract from it. But look at that, Nico Hülkenberg, fourth quickest for Haas Ferrari. Again, it is what it is. Good job, Nico, as ever. Has been doing all year, as indeed Haas Ferrari have. And the other car in the morning session, driven by the new signed driver for Haas Ferrari for 2025, Oliver Bowman. He drove that car, the Kevin Magnussen car in the morning. So Kevin obviously behind the 8 ball going into the afternoon session. Charles Leclerc 27.1, Lewis Hamilton 27.2, and then Max Verstappen 27.2. What should we make of that? Well, that 27.2, he was the first out on soft tyres, so you could argue that he was out when the track was a little bit slower. That's what that time was. He then went out on the same set again to do another run, having changed the car a little bit, and had a bit of a moment going in the approach to Beckett's. Big moment, actually, and kept it and obviously scrapped the lap. So that is a lap that obviously is not representative of what Max can do, bearing in mind Sergio Perez 26.9. Carlos Sainz also. Lance Stroll going quite well in the Aston Martin, and George Russell, another who's much further down than he should have been, didn't get in a really good lap in the windier conditions of the second session, FP2. Fernando Alonso also slower than Lance Stroll as well. Aston Martin having the first Grand Prix since the announcement that Andy Cowell will be taking over the running of the operation from Martin Whitmarsh, and that's a very good thing. As I said in the video we've put out already, top man, bright guy, bad news for everybody else, I think, going to Aston Martin. And I don't know why it is, but there's a little voice inside my head saying, wow, with Andy Cowell there and Aston Martin, kind of clean operation, lots of money obviously from the Stroll family, would Adrian Newey be thinking of going there now instead of all the chaos of Ferrari? Just a little voice in the back of the mind. Maybe not. He's got links, of course, with Aston already through the road car. Let's back all that up by having a look at the speed trap times in FP2 with the cars on light fuel. The speed trap at Silverstone, exactly where it should be at the end of Hangar Straight. That's that long straight between the high-speed Beckett's, S's and Stowe Corner, which of course is much tighter now than it used to be, but a good place for the speed trap. It is speed through the air, there really is terminal velocity. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin 3.28. Let's have a look where Fernando Alonso is, 3.24. He did get a couple of toes as well, but that's obviously a time without a toe. Yeah, maybe Lance Stroll's just running less wing. Maybe that's a good setup. I think in general, when you look at the speed trap times, you can see that all the quick guys are relatively slow in a straight line because they're running a lot of downforce, or the car's generating a lot of downforce, let's put it that way. And the slower cars, in terms of overall lap, are quicker through the trap. So it's become the inverse of the lap, if you like. I suppose Lance Stroll's the anomaly there because he was quite quick over the lap as well. So you've got to say at the moment he's got a pretty good setup in terms of top speed and the lap as a whole. And if you look at the first of the serious runners, if I can say that, Max Verstappen 3.25, there's quite a few cars ahead of him there, 3.25, and compare that with George Russell 3.21, Lando Norris 3.23. So again, the Red Bull has a significant advantage in a straight line. What does he look like compared with the Ferraris? Just about the same, except that the Red Bull is generating more downforce. So that's more efficient downforce from the Red Bull. He's got the sort of Ferrari top speed, but he's got more downforce than the Ferrari, as shown in the lap time. So in that respect, Red Bull looking very good. Sergio Perez 3.25. He's usually quicker than Max, but on this occasion just about the same. The Alpines there or thereabouts. As I say, Fernando Alonso not that quick, and the McLarens and the Mercedes too. Lewis Hamilton 3.23. George Russell slowest of all 3.21. So lots of downforce being generated by the Mercedes at Silverstone, whatever setup they're running in terms of how low they are to the road probably, but they're losing in terms of top speed. So if we look at that, 3.21, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton 3.23, Max Verstappen 3.25, and it's quite a long straight there, so that's quite a long time to be carrying that advantage. Then they went quickly into the longer runs, the fuel runs, a bit of an assortment in terms of what tyres they ran, the medium and the soft, because there was this forecast of rain at the end of FP2. So let's have a look at what happened in those long runs. I haven't done every lap because I thought maybe it's all getting a bit too complicated and over the top in terms of a short video. I've just put in the fastest lap they did on those long runs in the order in which the lap time carried them. Lando Norris, quickest again, 31.6. Obviously the names in red are the drivers who were using the soft tyre. The soft tyre and the medium looking very similar around Silverstone. And Max Verstappen remarking afterwards that he thinks he might even have been quicker on the light fuel run had he been on medium tyres. So they're very, very closely matched. And that's why you see almost 50% of the top runners on the soft tyre, and some of the teams choosing to go McLaren, very good example, medium on Lando Norris, soft on Oscar Piastri. As it happened with Oscar, he did a good long run on the medium and the soft, as you can see, the only one who did that. 31.8 on the soft tyre, 31.8 on the medium tyre, bearing out exactly what I've just said. So Lando Norris was his fastest lap with fuel in the car, medium tyres, 31.6. Max Verstappen, 31.6 as well. So there you go. That's teeing it up for Sunday as well for another Max Verstappen Lando Norris clash. But Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton admittedly on the soft tyre. So even though the tyre looked pretty good, maybe in race conditions it's certainly going to go off sooner than the medium tyre. But 31.7 for Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri 31.8, 31.8 on those two different compounds. George Russell 31.9 on the soft tyre, so very, very close, as we've been saying. And the Mercedes slightly quicker with fuel on board than the Ferrari. Charles Leclerc 31.9, Carlos Sainz 32.0. Sergio Perez didn't do that many laps because of the not having done any laps in the morning session. 32.3 in the other Red Bull on the medium compared with Max 31.6. Fernando Alonso 32.8 on the medium. Lance Stroll 32.9 on the soft. And Nico Hülkenberg was pretty quick too, I thought, right up there with the Aston Martins in terms of fuel, or Lance Stroll 32.9. We need to back that up as well with the speed trap numbers on when they were running fuel, just to see if we can get a picture of whether some teams, some drivers were running more fuel than others. Lando Norris now quickest through the trap, very slow with light fuel, but Lando Norris with fuel on board, incredible exit from Beckett's, and that's he's holding that all the way down Hanger Straight. I've got two numbers there, and that's sort of, because there was a sort of average depending on wind, depending on the sort of lap they were on. So that's just averaging the times out. 3.06, 3.04 Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri and the other McLaren underlining that. So in terms of race condition, the McLaren's really good in top speed, but in terms of single lap, not so good. Interesting, isn't it? It's because they're so quick out of Beckett's and how quickly they're going through Beckett's and the handling and the grip they've got there. Oscar Piastri 3.05, 3.04. Sergio Perez 3.03, 3.04 in the Red Bull. Again, he didn't do that many laps, so it's slightly suspicious he probably didn't have as much fuel on board as, say, Max Verstappen. George Russell 3.03, 3.04. Lance Stroll, yeah, pretty good. Nico Hülkenberg. Max Verstappen 300. So given how relatively quick Max was on light fuel through the speed trap and how relatively slow he is there with fuel on board through the speed trap, in other words 6 kilometers down on Lando Norris, albeit Red Bull probably don't have the setup quite right, you got to assume that at the moment Max probably running a lot more fuel than McLaren. Lewis Hamilton 295, 300. Again, Mercedes not that good in a straight line. Lewis slower than George with fuel on board, and the two Ferraris really slow. Bearing out what we were saying, they've got not enough downforce, nothing like good enough in terms of generating downforce around the lap. They're very, very edgy on fast corners, as I was saying, not even over 300 for either Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz. And I don't think that's a question of wing setting. I think that's just a question of they've got to have a reasonable amount of grip on the car. And at the moment, they're right on the edge of decent grip and against top speed. And of course, the problem at Silverstone is that it's all levels of grip. It's slow corners, it's turn into slow corners, it's traction out of slow corners, it's medium speed corners, and it's high speed corners, and it's high speed change of direction. The full gamut of everything a racing car is required to deliver to a driver is on the Silverstone lap. So that's really hurting Ferrari at the moment in terms of their top speed with fuel on board. It's a bit of a strange Silverstone on Friday because of the weather, because of the wind, because it's Silverstone. But I think we got some patterns there that are definitely worth studying. Interesting to see how that parlays into what we see in qualifying tomorrow and going into the Grand Prix. So there we are, looking forward to that. Looking forward to the F2 and F3 races as well. Lots going on at Silverstone as ever. Amazing crowd, really good atmosphere. A big thanks to Jetcraft, to OEM Exclusive, and to TrackNinja for supporting this channel. Take care, see you tomorrow.